So 1/6 we're going to subtract today. So you have, I have over here some notes. Let me give them to you. So I'm working from a page. It's got a front, it's got a back, it's got a lot of subtract on there. And I'll give you a reminder or a thought on adding I didn't give you last time. So I didn't recommend this on the adding day, but it's true. It only sort of helps you if a number line is handy, and we have a number line in the room, although it's off camera. Sometimes people like to look at the number line to help them add, and that's fine. If you want to add a positive, where would that head you on the number line?
Right.
Head you to the right. So adding a negative must take you left. If you want to use that tool, feel free to use that tool. That tool can continue to help you on subtracting day, because adding and subtracting are opposites. So if adding a positive went right, subtracting a positive must go left. And if subtracting a positive goes left, subtracting a negative must go right. If that helps you, then use that. That's fine. Another thing that you could do to help you subtract, but you don't have to, it's true, some schools teach it this way, but I generally don't. But if you like this better than what I say, use this. Since adding and subtracting are opposites, we can make use of that fact by just making some changes and making subtract not ever exist. What happens if you do the opposite of something twice? You get back to where you started. So if I wanted to show you that, I could walk to the back of the room and go lights, opposite with the light switch, and we'd end up with lights on like they are now. Or I could go door opposite, and the door would end up in the same circumstance that the door is in now. What you can do, if you want to be patient about doing this, is you could take a paper like we're looking at, then down the whole middle of this paper you see subtract signs. And then there's a whole bunch of mix of numbers, some of which are positive and some of which are negative. If you're patient enough to do this, you could change every subtract to an add if you change positives to negatives. You could change every subtract to an add, but you would change negatives into positives. If you went down the middle of the page, all of those next door neighbor signs that are in the middle of those problems, change those both, you'd have the exact same problem type. And then you only would ever need to know the add rules. Every problem would become an add problem in your world. That's not my style, but if that's your style, go for it. If you get right answers, I don't really criticize how you got them. You never change anything about the first number, called the menu end, if you remember that one. But you change the sign of the subtrahend, which is the second number, and you change the sign of the subtract into an add. And if you do that, you make the entire subtracting worksheet become an adding worksheet. I tend to work with just a separate set of rules. So here's rules that we might remember. If you don't remember them, I'll tell you. We'll take a quiz tomorrow to start the period with the same 3 add rules we did on today's quiz. And then we'll throw on 3 new subtract rules. Does anybody remember a subtract rule from life with me in our past?
Minus minus makes plus.
Minus minus makes plus, which is basically what we just did here. We had a minus, I made everything addings and positives. That is a rule. So let's drop that on there somewhere, and let's do all the problems of that type. Let's scope those out. So for number 3, that's the first one that's like that. Number 3, I have negative 3. No, that's a lie. Number 2. I have a positive 3. Subtracting negative 6. So what I would do on my paper is I would take this and make that just a big old plus sign instead of a couple minus signs. So one of the rules you can write for your rule quiz tomorrow, 2 minuses in a row makes a plus. Once you make this a plus, it's not adding like yesterday, it's positive in the second number. The first number is what it used to be. So in this case, it's 2 positives, and we're in like first grade adding. This just became 3 plus 6 on number 2, which makes 9. So number 2 is 9. Spot me the next one of those. Minus minus to make plus. There's one before 6. 4. 4, we could take those middle minuses a plus, but we're not in first grade because it's a -3 at the beginning. So when a negative adds a positive, what's our newer than first grade rule on that?
Are you looking at a page? I
Yeah.
didn't get that.
Just pass through.
Okay.
Sorry.
Number 4, if we make those middle minuses a plus, which add rule are we looking at now? One of each rule is, depends on who's bigger, which is the
Subtract.
positive or negative in this case. Positive, and then we also want to subtract, which gets us 3. Where's the next double minus problem? 6, make that double minus a plus, and that's just going to be 9. We're back to first grade. Where's the next one? 7, make the minuses a plus. Are we in first grade?
Yeah.
No, because it's -6, positive 3. So what rule was that again?
It depends on
Depends and subtract. So that'll get us -3. Next up, 9. If we make the change on 9, are we in first grade?
Yeah.
I'd say yeah. 6 and 6 just makes 12. Next up, 11.
-6 plus positive 6 is 0.
It's going to be a 0. Let's pause there. We'll work the first 12 for now. Question about that group of that rule? Then what's another scenario? Negative minus positive is I'll sometimes put that in air quotes, but you don't have to do the quotes on there. But if you do a negative minus a positive, that's a bigger negative. By which I mean bigger in value, even though it went like down left on the number line. So where do we see, which problem number do you see a negative number subtracting a positive number? Is number 3. Number 3, we have a negative number subtracting a positive number. So I'm going to go bigger into the negative world to -9 on that one. It's bigger in magnitude, in size. It's not bigger in value. Like -9, you like less than any of the other numbers. That's a worse debt or a worse situation for your football team to be in to lose 9 yards. But number 3 is kind of like you already owed your friend $3, and then you took out another loan for $6 more, and now you're $9 in debt. Or it's like your football team lost 3 yards and then they lost 6 yards. So together we lost 9 yards. That's what's going on for number 3. Where's the next one that is that type? 8 is that type. So how deep into the negatives is that one going?
-9.
-9 again. There's one more of those on the top 12. 12. How deep are you going that time into the negatives? -12 is true. Question about that trio for that rule? Then that leaves us only one type. What type is left? Positive minus positive. How does positive minus positive go? It's positive if the first one's bigger. What if the first one's not bigger? Then it's a negative. So of the remaining problems, number 1, positive minus positive, is that positive?
No.
No, it's negative who then?
-3.
-3, because we're subtracting that. 5 was positive minus positive. Is that one positive? Yeah, so positive 3. And then 10 is left. 10 is sort of weird in a way. It gets you 0 because nobody was bigger. Anything minus itself is going to be 0. Question about that? So that's our third rule. Positive minus positive is positive with a very important small word, if the first is bigger. You've probably had a lot of conversations at home with parents and guardians who used the word if, and you didn't pay enough attention, I'll take you to Kennywood if you clean your room. And then the next day you're like, we're going to Kennywood. And the parents are like, you didn't clean your room, we're not going to Kennywood. And you're like, what? You know, if is a real important word in conversations. So positive minus positive is positive only if that first number is the bigger number. Question about top 12. So why don't we pause the record and take on 13 to 24, and then we'll compare notes when everybody gets through them, all 12 of those. Okay, so I'll plow through this from 13 down, and then if you have questions, I'll try to troubleshoot with you. Starting at 13 on the front, I'm saying 9, 1, -1, -9. 17's group has -9, 1, +9, -1. 21's group has 8, 0, 0 again, and then -8. Does anybody need any troubleshooting guidance on the front? Yes, sir.
24.
24, it's a negative minus a positive, so I'm going to go bigger negative and go negative, put them together down in the hole to -8.
Okay. There's one more, but I think it was the same as you.
Probably, was it number 16 or?
Yeah, it was 16.
That's the one, yeah. We're going negative minus positive, so you go negative and put the numbers together to go deep into the negative.
Okay.
Anybody else, any kind of scoring or any kind of questions about the front? Okay. We'll turn you loose on the back. On the back, just go ahead and do any of the back. We don't necessarily need to just structure this section by section. So why don't we go 25 to 28 with fractions. You're going to have to make a common denominator. And if you're changing the bottom, you have to change the tops. And that's what that's going to be about. 29 to 32, you're going to line up the decimals. If it involves a subtracting kind of a feel, you're going to have to put the number that's the bigger number on the top. The bigger value of number, I mean. So like for number 30, if you end up having to subtract those, the 5.7 number has to stack on top of the 2.31 number to help you be able to borrow correctly. For the last group, you would do what's in the parentheses first and then work from there. Does anybody need any more little bit of guidance on those, on that set? Then why don't we hit stop on this, and then we'll resume in a little bit. Okay, so here's our answer sequence. Not everybody has them all yet, but if you don't, just jot down what the answer is and make sure you can get it before you leave the room in a couple minutes. The homework that launches off of this is on page 29. Page 29 goes from 1 to 21. But before you try to do that, let's make sure we can actually do these. So 25, I'm going to say negative 17/12, or if you'd rather, negative 1 and 5/12. 26 is negative 11 35ths. 27 is 19 over 72. 28 is 7 on top of 6, or 1 and 1/6. 29 is negative 4.88. You'll have to add those together. 30 is positive 3.391. You had to subtract those because they're like different types. 31 is 5.27. You had to add those together because they were the same thing once you made a change. 32 is negative 1.581. You had to subtract those because they were different types. 33 is negative 12. 34 is negative 8. 35 is negative 1. If you nailed those, go ahead and start the homework page. We've got a few minutes together. If you've got some issues, let's troubleshoot them. Anybody needs some troubleshooting?
Can you do 27?
27, I would make 72 for the bottom. Are you good with that?
That was what I couldn't figure out the
Okay.
bottoms.
Yeah, 8 and 9 will go into 72.
Alright.
Do you need me to
I'm
keep
good.
talking, or that was your
No,
sticking
that
point?
was it. I just was checking bottoms and I couldn't find them.
Yep. Anybody else, anything on that paper you want to troubleshoot? Any of that?
32.
32. Make the two minuses in the middle a plus. Now think about the previous day worth of rules. We have a negative 4, we have a positive 2. So that depends on the bigger one, which is the negative. So negative answer. And when we go to subtract, stack up the 4.3, make it 4.300, and stack it above the other number and do a little borrowing.
Okay.
Is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have anything that gave you any sort of problems on the back of doing those? Okay, well, we can shut that down and call it a day. Next time, the page for homework and the